Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video I'm going to show you how to install the rather excellent Gammaxx AG500 on the AM4 platform. Keep watching to find out how. Okay, so in today's video I'm going to show you how to install this cooler. This is the Gammaxx AG500 Black Edition. This is a performance CPU cooler and we're going to be installing it on our AM4 platform here, which is going onto a Ryzen 7 5800X. Now, ideally, you're going to want some thermal paste and that kind of stuff. There is some included in the box, but depending on your needs, you may want to get some additional things. You're also going to need things like a screwdriver and obviously a safe and stable workplace. But other than that, that is pretty much it. So let's get straight on with it. Okay, so starting off, if this is a brand new installation or a brand new board, then you're going to have to remove the standard AM4 plastic brackets. So it's the usual deal here, just undo all 4 screws and take off the plastic bit, put it to one side. You never know, it may come in handy if you need to ever return the board or whatever, if you sell it at a later date. Always handy to have them, don't throw them away. Next, from your installation box, you want to grab your top plate, which looks a lot like this, and when it's mounted it's going to look something like that. So make sure you've got that handy, and also you're going to need your AM4 fitting kit, which is this bag here, which is almost color coded if it was red, but this is the Ryzen one, so these are kind of orangey coloured and they've got a fluted section around the outside edge. There's also 4 replacement screws in there to screw it down. So let's open those up and get those installed. So with these, just pop them on top of the actual standoffs there, and you'll find that they might only fit on one way, so if they don't fit properly one way, they'll fit the other. You do make use of the existing AM4 backplate, which is on the back, so ideally you want to do this on a flat surface, otherwise at this point it's actually going to fall off. Once you've got that in place, then you can put over the top plate, which is going to go over something like that. So these little holes match up with the indentations, so if I start this side first of all, just do a couple of screws, do a couple there, so that's going to kind of hold it in place, and then we can do the top one, and then finally do the very last one. Now with these, I would tighten them up as far as they'll go, so go right down to the very bottom, just loosely, but just so it makes contact. And then once that's done, then you can go around, do a final tighten down and do it in opposing corners so you get some equal pressure on there. There we go. And just make sure that's fitted and solid. Things to watch out for on this, obviously, if you've got a motherboard that has capacitors or VRMs or chokes or anything like that along this side, make sure that obviously the bracket clears them. It should do. The bracket has been designed with AMD's keep out zone in mind, and that should be the same for Intel as well if you're watching this potentially with an Intel setup, but it's not going to be exactly the same, but it is a similar sort of principle. So there we go, there is our bracket installed, and also what you can do as well, just make sure wiggle it doesn't move, and also flip the board over and make sure that your AM4 backplate is completely flush. You'll see there is a kind of like a gasket around the edge there. Just make sure that is sealed all the way around. And that way you're pretty much good to go and ready for the next part, which is actually putting some thermal paste on and then attaching our cooler. Inside your pack, you will find there is some Deepcool thermal compound. Feel free to use that if you want to. I'm not going to on this particular instance. I'll keep that safe and secure for a later date. So I'm just going to put on a little bit of Arctic's MX4. Obviously use whatever you feel is best. And I'm just going to do a bit of a cross pattern there. Obviously do however you want to. So now we can get the cooler ready. So when you take the actual cooler out of the box, this is it. This is the AG500. Looks pretty cool. But you'll see that it's actually, the fan is attached straight out of the box. So you need to lever these down on the side, the springs, and pull those off. If you find they are a little bit too much tension on them, then you can always grab yourself a screwdriver and use that as a form of leverage or some sort of plastic lever, and you can pull those off. They are pretty darn tight, so you may need to use tools to actually relieve those. if you're watching this video and you've come across the same thing, you're like, I can't get these things off, don't worry, they are just extremely tight. Once you get one side off, actually not too bad, the other side comes off relatively easily. So remove that from the actual cooling stack, and you'll notice the cooling stack has actually got two lots of patterns. So on one side, which is the fan side, there is a small indentation channel here centrally. If we flip it over onto the other side, we've got this kind of waffle pattern, which hopefully you can just about see on the camera. I think there we go, there's some pretty good angles there. So the waffle side is the side which is on the back, which doesn't have the fan attached to it. Also, if you're not entirely sure, you'll see on the bottom where the actual heat pipes are. The one at the back, which is this one here, I'll show you that one there. So it kind of swoops back a little bit, trying to keep this side, which is going to be the memory side and the fan side, a little bit further away from your memory and all that kind of stuff, as you'll see shortly. Don't forget as well, on the bottom, we do have a sticker on there, which carefully says, warning, remove before installation, and tells you the size of it for some reason. Not too sure what the relevance is there, but let's go ahead and peel that off now. If you leave it on, you'll find your temps will be absolutely horrible. And if you want to, just make sure in terms of quality control, just maybe run your nail across the heat pads there, or heat pipes, just to make sure it's a nice smooth surface. You never know, there could be a defect, in which case you can return it and get one which has a perfectly flat bottom, which this one actually has. So next up, we can actually attach the cooler to the motherboard. So again, don't forget, you've got the bit on the back, so it kind of swoops backwards on the rear edge. So that is going to be the one that's going to go towards this side, and the kind of more vertical side, this side is for the RAM side to give you extra RAM clearance. So you've got two screws on the bottom, and those two screws match up with the points here and here. So all you're going to want to do is to either line one up at the back slightly if you want to, if that's the one slightly more obscure to you, and then kind of drop it down into place, and you should find it fits pretty much exactly, and is relatively level as well. So what I like to do in this particular instance is, with the screws, do a few reverse turns until you hear a click. There we go, there's a click, so that means it should be bang on the thread, and you can do a couple of turns there to get it started. And again, with the back one, you can do a couple of reverse turns. There's the click, and then we'll do a few more turns to get it started again. And then just basically alternate that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And just wind it down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And keep going until you hit a hard stop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Lots of screws here. 1, 2, 3. Ooh, there we go. That one's done. So that was down a little bit lower to begin with. Oh, and that one's stopped now. So there we go. That is right down to the bottom on both of them. And what you can do if you want to is just give it a very slight wiggle. You should find there's no play in it whatsoever. And that's all nicely attached. And don't forget, make sure that your heat pipe at the back here is at the back of the motherboard, or facing out the rear, to give you the best RAM clearance possible. So the next part is to actually attach the fan to the actual heatsink. So you probably find the actual clips are still going to be in place from when you removed it earlier. You want the cables, which are coming out here. Let's move that back a bit. So the cables are coming out at the bottom, and you can actually rest the cooler directly onto the screw here to give you kind of it lined up to begin with. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And for us, that might be a little bit low because we've still got some of those heat pipes visible at the top. So I'm going to lift it up very slightly and just line it up so it is completely level with the top there. And then just pull back the clips until top and bottom is locked in on both sides. And then all we need to do is to do the wiring for the fan. So find your motherboard and see where your headers are. This one, the CPU header, is this one here at the top, and there is an addressable RGB header just here as well. So let's take the PWM cable first of all. So this is the PWM cable, and you'll see it has some little notches on there. So the notches basically line up with a little bit of plastic which is in there. So we go ahead and just pop that on. Very simple. Put it on, and then you can just tuck the cable in around just to keep it out of harm's way. And with the addressable RGB one, probably going to have to remove the zip tie or cable tie or twist stick, whatever you call them. Move that out of the way and then plug in one of the headers. So you've got two headers on here. You've got your female one there, and with the cover on you've got a male one, so that's like a pass-through. So if you're using up the only header on your board, you can connect up additional RGB components or addressable RGB components to the other header. We're not going to be doing this in particular instance, so do pay close attention as well to the actual pin outs. So you've got two pins, a blank, then a single pin, and you should find on your header you've got exactly the same. If you don't, you're using the wrong header. Don't plug it in. And just pop that on. These are a little bit of a pain sometimes. There we go, that's locked into place. And then obviously, depending on your motherboard or setup, you can just cable manage that out of the way and you're good to go. Make sure the fan spins freely, no obstructions to the fan at all, and then you're ready to go. Turn on your PC to set up your fan in the BIOS. But in terms of installation, that, my friends, is pretty much it. So there you go, there is the AG500 in black installed on our AM4 motherboard. Very easy to do, very straightforward. I really like this cooler actually, it's very simple, and you have got some absolutely amazing RAM clearance there. So if you've got your larger RGB RAM and you're using all 4 slots, then this is going to be a very good shout. And with the 5 heat pipes, you should get some fantastic cooling performance regardless of pretty much any processor you're using on it, as long as you've got sufficient airflow in your case, that is. So there you go. Any comments or questions, feel free to put them in the comments section below. But for now, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.